For 10 long years, the Apache tribe lived in silence. The wind crossed the dry desert carrying only the sound of their drums and prayers. The men who once hunted, rode, and protected the tribe had been gone for a decade. Some were taken by sickness, some by time, and some by the endless battles that once covered the land. The tribe's heart had grown quiet. The women tended the fires. The children learned stories of courage. But no man had stood to lead them again. The elders said a brave soul would come one day, not from their own blood, but from the wide land beyond the mountains. Someone with courage, heart, and respect for the old ways. They said he would not come with pride, but with kindness. One evening, when the sun melted into the red hills, a dust trail appeared in the far distance. A horse walked slowly down the dry path carrying a man who looked weary from travel. His face was rough with dust, his coat old but clean, and his eyes calm like deep water. His name was Thomas Gray. He was a former scout who had left the army years ago after losing faith in the endless fights. He had no family, only a horse, a small bag, and a scar on his arm from an old memory he didn't talk about. He had spent years wandering from town to town, fixing fences, helping lost travelers, and sleeping under stars. That evening, his horse led him toward the old Apache Valley, without knowing that his life was about to change forever. As he reached the ridge, he saw smoke from small fires rising from the valley floor. The sound of drums echoed lightly, not in war but in prayer. Thomas stopped, feeling the air grow warmer. He had heard stories about this tribe, the one that had no men left, only widows, children, and elders. He dismounted quietly, watching from a distance. His horse neighed softly, breaking the silence. In moments, 3 young Apache boys appeared from behind the rocks with bows in hand. Their eyes showed surprise more than fear. Thomas raised his hands slowly, showing peace. "I mean no harm," he said in a gentle voice. One of the boys ran back toward the camp. Within minutes, several women appeared on the ridge. Their dresses were made from deerskin, and beads shone faintly in the sunset. At the center stood a tall woman, her black hair tied with leather, her face calm but watchful. She looked around 40, though her eyes held wisdom beyond that. Her name was Naya, daughter of the last Apache chief. She had carried the tribe through 10 hard years, raising children, keeping peace, and protecting their way of life with nothing but her words and courage. She looked at Thomas for a long moment before speaking. "You ride alone," she said. "Most who come here do not," Thomas nodded. "I go where my horse leads." "I saw your fires and stopped," the women whispered among themselves. No man had entered their land in many years. Some saw him as a danger, others as a sign. Naya studied him quietly, sensing something different. "You may rest near the stream," she said at last, "but no closer until we know your heart." Thomas thanked her and led his horse down to the water. He made a small fire and sat quietly, letting the evening wrap around him. He did not ask questions, did not look curious or bold. He simply sat, polished his saddle, and shared half his bread with a hungry dog that came from the trees. The children watched him from a distance, whispering. They had never seen a white man act with such quiet respect. That night, the tribe gathered near the central fire. Naya's mother, an old woman with gray braids, spoke in a low voice. "The wind brings change," she said. "He may be the one the spirit spoke of." Others were uncertain. They had known too much pain from outsiders. But Naya kept her thoughts to herself. Something about Thomas felt steady. Not proud, not loud, just steady. The next morning, when the tribe awoke, they found Thomas already working near the stream. He had found broken wooden posts from an old corral and was quietly fixing them. He used his own rope and simple tools. He didn't wait for permission or thanks. He saw a problem and began to mend it. Some of the younger women whispered and watched. When Naya passed by, he only nodded. "Your fence was leaning," he said simply. She didn't answer, but her eyes softened a little. Days turned into a week. Thomas stayed near the valley, helping where help was needed. He fetched water, repaired tools, taught the boys how to ride bareback safely, and even helped build a stronger shelter before the coming storms. Every night he returned to his small fire near the stream and sat quietly. He never crossed the invisible line that marked their inner village. He respected it as if it were sacred. The tribe slowly began to accept his presence. The children laughed when he taught them how to throw pebbles across the water. The old women noticed he never took more food than he needed. Even Naya's stern heart began to see something in him, something she had not seen in years, a sense of peace. A man who led without trying to lead. One afternoon, a storm came over the mountains. The sky turned dark and heavy rain started to fall. The wind tore through the valley, pushing down tents and scattering supplies. Thomas ran from his camp toward the village, helping pull ropes, lifting children out of the mud, and securing shelters with logs. He didn't think twice. He worked beside them as if he had lived there all his life. When one of the large tents began to tear, Naya struggled to hold it. Thomas rushed over, grabbed the pole, and held it steady as the rain beat down on them. Their eyes met through the curtain of water, two souls who had both lived through storms of their own. When the storm passed, the village was safe. The fires were damp but alive. Naya stood before him, soaked but calm. "You could have left when the storm began," she said. "Most men would have." Thomas shrugged lightly. "Most men don't know what it means to belong somewhere," he replied. She looked at him for a long moment and something in her heart stirred. The next few days were quiet again, but the tribe's mood had changed. The children brought him gifts of food, the women shared cloth, and the elders invited him to sit near the evening fire. For the first time in years, laughter echoed across the valley. Thomas told stories of his travels, not of wars or fighting, but of kindness, of helping strangers, and of lessons learned under the wide sky. The tribe listened like children hearing rain after drought. One evening, Naya approached him near the stream. She handed him a carved wooden piece shaped like a feather. "This means you are trusted," she said. "It means you have walked with respect." Thomas took it gently, unsure of what to say. "Thank you," he said softly. "I didn't come to be trusted. I just wanted to help." Naya smiled faintly. "That is why you are." That night the stars were bright and clear. The tribe slept in peace. For the first time in a decade, the valley felt alive again. Not because of power or force, but because one quiet man had shown what true strength really looked like. Naya sat outside her tent looking toward the stream where Thomas's small fire still burned. She whispered to herself, "Perhaps the spirits were right. The brave man has come, not to lead us with words, but to remind us of our heart." The wind moved through the valley softly that night, carrying the scent of rain and hope. Thomas lay by his fire, staring at the sky, unaware that his life was now tied forever to the people who had waited 10 long years for someone just like him. The next morning, the valley glowed under soft sunlight. Birds sang again after the heavy rain. The smell of wet earth filled the air. Thomas woke early as usual, cleaned his tools, and checked his horse. He had learned to live quietly among the Apache people, never crossing their rules, always speaking with respect. Still, he could feel that something had changed after the storm. People now looked at him differently, no longer as an outsider, but as someone who had become part of their daily life. When he went down to the stream to fetch water, some of the boys followed him. They asked questions about the world beyond the hills. They had never seen a town, a train, or even a large city. Thomas told them about machines that moved without horses, about lights that shone without fire, and about people who built bridges longer than the river itself. The children listened wide-eyed, amazed. But when one boy asked, "Are those people kinder than us?" Thomas smiled sadly and shook his head. "Kindness doesn't belong to one place," he said softly. "It lives where people care." Later that day, the elders called a gathering. The oldest woman in the tribe, known as Grandmother Tala, spoke in a clear voice. "We have lived without a man for 10 years, she said. "But a tribe needs balance. The Spirit sent him to us. We must see if he is truly brave in heart." Everyone grew silent. Thomas sat quietly, not sure what they meant. Tala looked at him and said, "You helped us during the storm. You brought peace among our children. But courage is not only in work, it is in truth. Tomorrow we will ask you to walk the path of the heart." That night Thomas sat by his fire thinking about her words. He didn't know what the path of the heart meant, but he respected their ways. He looked toward the sky, remembering his past. The days he had lost his friends in the army, the people he couldn't save, and the reason he had left it all behind. Maybe this was his chance to make peace with those old memories. The sound of soft footsteps broke his thoughts. When he turned, he saw Naya standing near the light of his fire. She looked calm, her dark hair shining under the stars. "My mother asked you to walk the path tomorrow," she said. "It is not a test of strength, but of soul. You must not fear." Thomas nodded slowly. "I've faced fear before," he said. "But I never faced something I didn't understand." Naya looked into the fire and said, "To walk the path, You must tell your truth before our people. You must speak not with pride but with honesty. We want to see the man behind the silence." She turned to leave, but Thomas stopped her gently. "Naya," he said, "if truth is what you ask, I'll give it. Even if it shows how weak I once was." She looked at him one more time and whispered, "That's what makes a man brave." The next day, the tribe gathered near the sacred stone circle. Smoke rose from a small fire in the center. Children sat in a ring, women behind them, and the elders stood with quiet strength. Naya's mother raised her hand for silence. "Thomas Gray," she said, "you came as a stranger. You stayed as a friend. Now tell us your truth so the land will know your heart." Thomas stepped forward. His hands were steady, though his voice was low. 10 years ago, he began, I wore a soldier's coat. I thought courage was about fighting. I thought honor meant doing what others told me. But one day I saw an old man trying to protect his family. I was ordered to move them, but I saw fear in his eyes. The same fear I carried in my own heart. That day I realized bravery is not in hurting others. It's in choosing peace when you can. So I left. I walked away and never looked back. I have been searching ever since, not for land, not for glory, but for a place where I can belong again. His voice broke slightly as he said the last words. Then he looked at them quietly. Maybe that place is here. For a moment there was only silence. The fire crackled softly. Then Grandmother Tala nodded slowly. "The man who knows his weakness is the strongest among us," she said. The women bowed their heads. Even the children stayed quiet, understanding more than words could say. Naya felt her heart tremble as she looked at him. The tribe had found its brave man, not through strength but through truth. From that day on, Thomas became part of their lives in every way. He helped teach the boys how to use tools, how to build stronger homes, and how to care for the horses. He learned from the women how to read the signs of the land and how to find herbs that healed. The elders said he was chosen by fate. The children began to call him Brother Gray. Slowly, the emptiness that had filled the tribe began to fade. Laughter returned. Songs were sung again at night. The valley felt alive. Weeks passed. One morning, while Thomas was fixing a roof, Naya came to see him. She handed him a small woven band made from red thread. "It's from the children," she said softly. "They say it's for luck." Thomas smiled and tied it around his wrist. "Tell them I'll keep it always." He paused for a moment, then looked at her with quiet eyes. "Naya," he said, "you've led your people with strength. You've kept them safe for years. You've done what no man could." She looked down, touched by his words. "I only did what had to be done," she said. "We all survive in our own way." Thomas nodded. "Maybe," he said softly, "but you've done more than survive. You've given them hope." Over the next few months, Thomas and Naya grew close. Their friendship became quiet but deep. They worked side by side, shared small stories, and often sat near the fire without needing to speak. The tribe began to notice. The elders smiled when they saw them together. The children teased Naya softly, and she only smiled in return. One evening, as the sun painted the hills red, Grandmother Tala spoke to Naya. "The spirits gave him to us," she said. "But they gave him to you too. The heart knows when it finds its echo." A few days later, Naya gathered the tribe. The sky was golden and calm. "We began this journey without men," she said. "But now we are whole again. Thomas has shown us what true bravery means. It is not in battle or in shouting. It is in kindness and truth." She turned to Thomas and said, "You came here lost. You gave us strength. Will you stay, not as a guest, but as one of us?" Thomas looked around at the faces that had become his family. The children smiled, the women nodded, and the elders waited quietly. He took a deep breath and said, "I came with nothing, but I found everything here. I will stay." The tribe cheered softly, but not with noise, with peace. That evening, a great fire was lit. Songs filled the valley again. The children danced, and the elders blessed the union of a man and a tribe that had once been broken. Naya stood beside him, her eyes shining with tears she didn't hide. 10 years we waited," she whispered. "And now the brave man stands among us." Thomas smiled gently. "No," he said. "The brave ones were here all along. I just reminded them." As the stars rose high over the desert, the fire burned bright, casting warm light on faces that had once known only sorrow. The laughter carried far beyond the hills. For the first time in many years, the valley was full of life and love again. The wind moved softly through the trees, as if blessing them all. And there, among the glowing embers and quiet songs, Thomas Gray, the man who had wandered for years, finally found what he never had before: a home, a family, and a place where courage meant peace.